I was always hoping that Vanessa could play the older Bryony, and then Romola fitted perfectly between the two.
I had to come on board and take over somebody else's performance, essentially, because Saoirse, who's playing Bryony at 13, had already established 5 weeks of really very, very impressive work. So it was difficult to come on and sort of pick up where she left off.
It's about a young girl, a young and foolish girl who sees something from her bedroom window which she doesn't understand, but she thinks she does. I probably won't ever finish it.
When we last see her, she's just published what is referred to as her 21st novel, although as she says it, in a way it's her first novel, because she began writing it and becoming the protagonist in a tragedy, very much of her making.
What about you, Bryony? What sins have you committed today?
I've done nothing wrong.
Have you seen the twins recently?
They didn't look very happy last time I saw them, poor little chaps.
You know nothing about it.
Bryony, I can't imagine what's got into you. I've never known you be so rude.
He's a working class guy who has gone through university, he's gone through Cambridge, and he's going to study to be a doctor. And he's very much in love with Keira's character, who is very much in love with him, but she can't understand why she's in love with him. She doesn't even realise that she's in love with him. She's just angry with him.
Let me help with that.
I'm all right, thanks.
Take the flowers.
I'm all right.
Take the flowers.
I'm all right. You idiot. You realise that's probably the most valuable thing we own?
Not anymore, it isn't.
Everything he does annoys her. His certainty annoys her. There isn't anything that, you know, the fact that he's being a gardener annoys her. The fact that he's rolling his cigarettes annoys her. Everything. And of course what she doesn't realise is actually it's total sexual tension between two people, and I think that the fact that they were childhood friends and they've known each other since the year dot means that she can't actually see what's going on between them.
I thought if you went away to medical school then I'd be happy, but I don't know how I could have been so ignorant about myself. You do know what I'm talking about, don't you? You knew before I did.
Why are you crying?
Don't you know?
Her entire feelings towards him that have been so confused suddenly make sense when she gets this letter from him.
Bryony read it.
It was a mistake. It was never meant to be read.
No. Unfortunately, the tension isn't released for very long because it all goes a bit wrong.
She sees them in the library, doing things that she's never seen before. She doesn't understand.
Celia!
She's confused with reality and her fairy tales. And then Lola gets attacked. Her cousin, and she just assumes that it's Robbie who's done this.
Is Robbie back? I haven't seen him.
I know who it was.
Social repression is always a big help, I think, when you are playing a situation. It makes it very interesting, heightens things, you know. As soon as something can't be said, it becomes dangerous.
I think miscommunication is a huge, huge part of it. The fact that these people cannot quite get out what they want to say. The fact that I think a lot of them, in one way or another, are trapped inside their own heads. You know, for Bryony, very definitely, she's a fantasist. And I think that the whole film is based around how terrifying it is when the line between fantasy and fact gets blurred.
I know it was him.
You know it was him? Or you saw him?
Yes, I did. I saw him.
With your own eyes?
Yes, I saw him. I saw him with my own eyes.
She's making up stories in her head, and she's making real people fit into the fiction that she's created. And basically the whole thing is about how that ruins an innocent man's life.
I love you. Come back. Come back to me.
For the producers and Joe Wright, the objective was to give the film an epic feel, on a moderate budget by Hollywood standards anyway. So the first challenge was finding the perfect place to set the scene of the story, the sweeping Tallis estate.
We searched high and low for the right house to play the role of the Tallis home, and finally found this house in Shropshire near Ludlow. There we were able to do the interiors and the exteriors which is very important logistically in terms of being able to move with the weather, so that when it was sunny we'd all run outside, and when it was cloudy or rainy we'd all run back inside.
Locations were also key as we follow the characters through their lives in wartime London and Dunkirk, an emotional journey for everyone involved.
Our hospital scenes, which is the Bryony section of the film, which is driven entirely by Romola Garai playing Bryony, aged 18, who's become a nurse, followed in her sister Cecilia's footsteps. And it is, in a sense, atoning for and trying to assuage her own guilt of the terrible act she committed when she was young.
Saoirse established her as being a very confident person with this very direct gaze, and also someone with a real sense of self-possession and right and wrong. And you can do a lot to make somebody feel more tentative, less self-assured with their voice, with their movement. And also more than that in the way that they relate to the other characters.
I do think the makeup was extraordinary, and it's kind of horrible to shoot that one. It wasn't emotional, it was just kind of horrible. It hurt.
I've never worked with prosthetics before, and they're incredible and also very disturbing. I mean, it's sad enough when you see the guys and nurses who are in this room who are all 17 or 18 years old, and you think, oh no, this isn't for the movie. These people were that young, but when you see them with the blood and their burnt clothing and their hugely traumatic injuries, and it brings it home to you how difficult it would have been for people during those first few weeks after the invasion.
I'm sorry I'm late, I got lost.
Hello.
Hello.
My favourite scene was the one where Robbie and Cecilia have tea after he comes back to her after 6 years.
Should we sit down? I ordered us some tea.
They can hardly speak to each other, but they're so in love with each other. And that was my favourite scene. That's the scene that made me want to do the filming.
You look the same. Apart from the uniform, of course.
Sorry, I've got to get back to the hospital in half an hour.
Good God, then.
It was definitely my favourite scene to play, and I think anybody who travels a lot probably knows it very well. You create the character of your loved one. You know, it's not the reality, and you can imagine it a million times, and you can write to them, and you can speak to them, but actually when you're face to face, you realise the amount of time that you've spent away from each other suddenly comes crashing down. And in that scene, I think they suddenly realise that they've both changed, that they don't know each other, and they don't know what to say, and there's so much to say, and yet you can't say anything at all.